government as in the private sector. The highest positions remain near monopoly. For the three top tiers of Varnas of the broader pyramid. The broader caste pyramid, the Brahmins or priestly class, the Kshatriyas or warrior class, and the Vaishyas or merchant class, group between them account for perhaps 20% of India's 1.3 billion people. It is not just the 220 million Dalits or the 190 million Muslims or the 110 million from scheduled tribes who are underrepresented, but also the 40 to 50% of Hindus who come from the widest tier of the pyramid, the Shudras or labouring castes, known as other backwards classes or OBCs. It is not only the come from the represented, but also Indian Dalits people. It is not just the 220 million Dalits, or the 190 million Muslims, or the 110 million from scheduled tribes who are underrepresented. But it is the 40 to 50% of Hindus who come from the widest tier of the pyramid, the Shudras or labouring castes, known as other backward classes or OBCs. For the 190 million Muslims or the 110 million from scheduled tribes who are underrepresented, but also the 40 to 50% of Hindus who come from the widest tier of the pyramid, the Shudras or labouring castes, known as other backwards classes or OBCs. Out of the 89 highest ranked civil servants in the central government, according to a recent survey, just 4 are not upper caste Hindus and not one is an OBC. Out of the 89 highest ranked civil servants in the central government, according to a recent survey, just 4 are not upper caste Hindus and not one is an OBC. 2/3 of the Supreme Court's 31 judges and more than half of all state governors are high caste Hindus. 2/3 of the Supreme Court's 31 judges and more than half of all state governors are higher caste Hindus. When the Home Ministry, all state governors are high caste Hindus. High caste Hindus. When the Home Ministry recently formed a panel are high caste Hindus. When the Home Ministry recently formed a panel to revise the criminal code, its 5 experts were all men, all from North India and all from upper castes. When the Home Ministry recently formed a panel to revise the criminal code, 5 experts were all men, all from upper castes, all from North India and all from upper caste. All from North India and all from upper castes. The trend is just as stark outside of government. The trend is just as stark outside of government. The trend is just as stark outside of government. The study published last year of the mainstream Hindi and English press revealed that out of 121 people in senior jobs, such as editors, all but 15 were upper caste. Not a single one was a Dalit. According to a study published last year of the mainstream Hindi and English press, revealed that out of 121 people in senior jobs, such as editors, all but 15 were high caste Hindus, and not a single one was a Dalit. All but 15 caste in senior jobs, such as editors, all but 15 were upper caste. Not a single one was a Dalit. Just as positive discrimination was supposed to equalize workplaces, it was hoped that demographic change, such as migration from villages to cities, would break down caste rigidities.
Just as positive discrimination was supposed to equalize workplaces, it was hoped that huge demographic shifts, such as migration from villages to cities, would break down caste rigidities.
Positive discrimination was supposed to equalize workplaces. It was hoped that demographic change, such as migration from villages to cities, would break down caste rigidities. Optimists contested greater mixing as people of multiple castes were often obliged by circumstance to share the same city wards.
Optimists pointed to greater mixing as people of multiple castes were often obliged by circumstance to share the same city wards.
Stubbornly, however, statistics have shown that intermarriage between castes remains rare. Just 6% of all couples at the most recent count.
Stubbornly, however, statistics have shown that intermarriage between castes remains rare. Just 6% of all couples at the most recent count.
An analysis of housing by a team led by Naveen Bharati of Harvard University.
An analysis of housing by a team led by Naveen Bharati of Harvard University
has revealed a striking persistence and in some cases an intensification of caste segregation.
Has revealed a persistence and in some cases an intensification of caste segregation.
Using census data for 147 cities at the level of blocks rather than wards,
using census data
assesses an intensification of caste segregation. Using census data for 147 cities.
Using census data for 147 cities at the level of wards rather or at the level of blocks rather than wards.
At the level of blocks rather than wards, and accounting not just for broad caste categories, but for jati, which is to say the 5,000 odd subcaste. Level of blocks rather than wards, and accounting not just for broad caste categories, but for jati, which is to say the 5,000 odd subcaste communities.
And accounting for not just broadcast categories, but for jatis, which is to say the 500 odd subcaste communities who tend to marry among themselves.
Mr. Bharati's team found that segregation by caste in Indian cities is comparable to that by race in American ones.
Mr. Bharati's team found that segregation by caste in Indian cities is comparable to that by race in American ones.
Whereas 60% of blocks in Ahmedabad, the biggest city in Gujarat, housed not a single Dalit.
Whereas 60%
in American ones. Whereas 60% of blocks in Ahmedabad.
Whereas 60% of blocks in Ahmedabad, the biggest city in Gujarat, housed not a single Dalit.
The biggest city in Gujarat housed not a single Dalit. Some 80% of Dalits lived in just 10% of the city.
Some 80% of Dalits lived in just 10% of the city.
Inequality in Ahmedabad, as measured by the Gini coefficient, was more extreme than in Johannesburg, the most unequal city in South Africa, the world's most unequal country.
Inequality in Ahmedabad, measured by the Gini coefficient, was more extreme than in Johannesburg, the most unequal city in South Africa, the world's most unequal country.
By the Gini coefficient, inequality in Ahmedabad, as measured by the Gini coefficient, was more extreme than in Johannesburg.
Was more extreme.
The most unequal to make seeming stasis. must have lost unequal country. Yet amidst seeming stasis, Mr. Bharati also found a great deal of churn.
Yet, amid seeming stasis, Mr. Bharati also found a great deal of churn.
Barriers are breaking in cities, but it's not the big barriers between castes, he says.
Barriers are breaking in cities, but it's not the big barriers between castes, he says.
Cities, but it's not the big barriers between castes, he says. It is the subcastes that are dissolving.
It is the subcastes that are dissolving.
He says. It is the subcastes that are dissolving. As the association of family names with traditional professions, which evoke some memories in villages.
As the association of family names with traditional professions, which evoke some memories in villages, makes ever less sense in cities.
There is less of a taboo around marrying into adjacent jatis within the same broader caste.
There is less of a taboo around marrying into adjacent jatis within the same broader caste. Within the same broader.
At the same time, says Mr. Bharati, class differences are growing stronger.
At the same time, says Mr. Bharati, class differences are growing stronger.
At the same time, says Mr. Bharati, class differences are growing stronger. If you zoom in on a Dalit slum, you will find that poorer Dalits don't intermix with Dalits of slightly higher status living right next door.
If you zoom in on a Dalit slum, you'll find that poor Dalits don't intermix with Dalits of a slightly higher status living next door.
You will find that poorer Dalits don't intermix with Dalits of slightly higher status living right next door. Ambedkar, who assumed that the positive discrimination he prescribed in the Constitution would end millennia of caste oppression, would be perplexed.
Mr. Ambedkar, who assumed that the positive discrimination he prescribed in the Constitution would end millennia of caste oppression, would be perplexed.